Welcome, everyone, to On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. We're going to get started in just a second. She has a big interview today, two big interviews. She's going to be featuring Dr. Kelly Victory in the first half of the program, and then Brook Jackson and her attorney, Robert Barnes. She is the woman suing Pfizer. But before we get to On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors over at The Wellness Company. And I want to tell you guys about the Parasite Cleanse. If you've ever wondered why your brain feels foggy, while your brain feels foggy, even when you're eating clean and exercising, it might not be burnout. It actually could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan McDonald revealed a direct link between chronic parasitic infections and neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body parasite cleanse at least once a year. And the Wellness Company has a solution, ivermectin plus menbendazole, the gold standard parasite solution now combined in one cleanse combo. It's designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some trendy herbal gimmick. All you have to do is fill out a quick intake form and get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. MAHA is officially here, and the Wellness Company is making it hard to get medications digitally accessible so that is making it easy to get medications digitally accessible so that you can live your best life. So right now, head to twc.health/Mary. That is twc.health/Mary, and use the promo code MARY to save $60 off plus free shipping for this amazing parasite cleanse. All right. So that's twc.health/Mary and promo code MARY for $60 off your purchase. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. It is On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden.
Welcome back. And I am so excited to have Kelly Victory back again. Dr. Victory and we were texting last night. I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of PTSD. I'm seeing all these people in the media that we haven't seen since the pandemic. And all of a sudden they've come out of the woodwork and are all over the media, all over the news, haunting us. What do you think of what do you agree? What's going on there?
Well, that's what I was texting last night. Thanks for having me, as always, Mary. But I was texting because this all happened in response to last week's announcement by ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, that they were removing the recommendation for the hepatitis B vaccine in newborn infants. And we can talk more about that. But interestingly, when that happened, and the fallout has been that the left, the pro-pharma people, the pro-vaccine people have doubled down, and they have dusted off these people who we had not seen in quite a while. They dusted off Dr. Rochelle Walensky, former CDC director. They dusted off Dr. Deborah Birx, you remember Scarf Lady from COVID? They even dusted off Fauci. These people had been they'd gone on to do whatever it is that they were doing, probably being pharma shills or getting paid as consultants for big pharma. But interestingly, the left found this decision by ACIP to remove the hepatitis B vaccine from the recommended schedule so appalling, so overwhelming, so dangerous, don't you know, that they have trotted out the entire cadre of these people that I thought we were done with. So I find it somewhat amusing. It's a reflection to me, Mary, of just how scared they are about what's going to happen with the childhood vaccine schedule, in part not because of just that one decision about Hep B, but more importantly, perhaps, because President Trump has given Bobby Kennedy and HHS the mandate to review the entire childhood vaccine schedule and to make it more in line with what other westernized countries are doing.
Well, and it does make me sympathize a little bit with Kennedy when you just see this nuclear meltdown over such a minor adjustment. I mean, I don't know that it really is that meaningful, other than it just contradicts the religion of vaccines. And one little comment, I don't know if you saw Burke's, but she's wearing a chain around her neck in her last interview. It was not, she's upgraded from the scarf. It's now a chain, which suggests to me that maybe she has this jail. I don't know. There's something subliminal about it. I don't know if you know.
I didn't notice it, but I agree with you, by the way. And I would have thought that removing the recommendation for the hepatitis B vaccine was such a chip shot, if you will. It is such common sense. There is absolutely zero rationale for a newborn baby, and the way it's written, for a newborn baby of a known hepatitis B negative mother. In other words, we know that the baby wasn't exposed in utero. We know that the baby isn't going home with a hep B positive mother. How is it that they're proposing that these babies would therefore, be subjected to or exposed to hepatitis B, which is a blood-borne IV drug use and sexually transmitted disease? So I would have thought it was such a chip shot that they wouldn't have made it any never mind. But instead, what you saw was quite the opposite. And it's not just saying we still think this is a good idea. They're out there saying that Bobby Kennedy is a baby killer. We are going to have a resurgence of, hep B in infants, that babies are going to die, need liver transplants, on and on and on. I mean, the hyperbole is insane. And so I can only imagine, given that that's what their response is to this one issue about hepatitis B that previously was being given on day one of birth. I can't imagine what they're going to say when Bobby Kennedy starts to actually say, turns out, we need randomized control trials for everything from the MMR to chickenpox, meningitis, and all the rest.
Well, and it really is, it's another litmus test, just like the COVID shot. I mean, how doctors respond to this, because it is, like you said, it's so common sense. And it makes me very mad that I didn't realize this during my medical training. I don't know about you, if you question it, but I just went along. I mean, granted, they spent about 5 minutes discussing vaccines. It was basically just, here they are, they're good.
Well, I want to talk more about that, because I've got some things to say specifically on that topic. But before we leave the hepatitis B issue, here's something I would pose to anybody who's got a shred of critical thinking capacity. Hepatitis B vaccines became mainstream 39 years ago. 36 years ago was when they started giving it to newborns on day one of birth. 36 years ago, every newborn baby, with rare exception, was given a hepatitis B shot. If the shots worked, then that would mean that any woman age 36 or younger, those are the women in childbearing, should be immune to hepatitis B if the shots actually worked.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
what's
it's like
the
a
scam?
double vaccine. Why do we need to double vaccine?
Right. Why do you need to vaccinate? If they were, because if the shots worked, then we should pretty much have all but eradicated hepatitis B, certainly in any woman age 36 or younger.
Well, so, Kelly, there could be that accidental finger stick in the newborn nursery, right? That, just the baby gets impaled with hepatitis B in the nursery. That's a real risk.
No, honestly, these are things that some of these vaccine zealots, like Peter Hotez, are saying. They're saying a toddler could trip over a hypodermic needle in the playground at daycare. They could, brush against a hepatitis B positive person who's bleeding at the grocery store. I'm like, these things are so preposterous as to be, this is Saturday Night Live stuff. But back to your issue about and I think it's important for people to understand that the issues with vaccines and with fraud, corruption, and graft in medical science didn't start with COVID. It started decades ago. You and I were lied to in our medical training. we were told, and I was one of the people out there saying things like, we have an entire generation of people who is too young to remember that we had a president in a wheelchair from polio, and it was the polio vaccine that ended the scourge of polio, except that that isn't true. That's what we were taught, but it isn't true. The severe illness and death from polio, from measles, and other things had all but gone to zero before those vaccines were ever initiated, before those vaccines ever went to the market. And it was the result of things like improved sanitation, clean water, better living conditions, and antibiotics. So those vaccines, specifically polio and measles, had virtually nothing to do with the plummeting of the rates of those diseases and deaths from those diseases. But that's not what we were taught. And the problem, doesn't start at COVID and with everything bad that happened during the COVID debacle, which was tremendous. It goes back for many decades, and you have therefore at least 2 or maybe 3 generations of healthcare practitioners who were taught, like you and I were, that vaccines are safe and effective, and obviously they're the greatest gift to public health, and everyone should get everything that's recommended, and that they'd all been tested, that they all had gone through the appropriate studies. And it turns out that none of that was true. So despite whether or not you agree with other things that Bobby Kennedy has done or said, he is 100% correct that not a single vaccine on the childhood vaccine schedule had ever gone through a randomized control trial using a placebo. Okay, they just didn't. All of them were compared to another vaccine rather than to a placebo, which would be like studying whether or not, whiskey causes, people to crash their cars, and then using vodka as your quote placebo rather than water. It's a flawed study, and they all need to be redone before we can ever say with certainty that any of the vaccines are, number 1, effective, and number 2, safe.
Well said. And it's going to take some time, obviously. I mean, we just made just a minor, tiny adjustment. And I don't even think that adjustment is really that meaningful, because to somebody who's not on Twitter all day, or, they're none the wiser. Like if I weren't on here, because you're not getting it from mainstream media.
Correct.
You're not getting it from Facebook and Instagram, probably. Doubt you're getting it on YouTube. So if you are none the wiser, you are at the mercy of your doctor. And unfortunately, most doctors just don't get it. And well, I don't know how we break that, though. How do we get more doctors? How do we unbrainwash everybody?
Boy, that's a great question, because I've said from the beginning, the debacle of COVID could not have happened, Mary, without the complicity of physicians, without the complicity of our colleagues. You and I and a handful of others were willing to suffer the slings and arrows and speak the truth. The vast majority of them did not. The vast majority of them adopted things, way beyond the vaccine. Let's talk about things like wearing a mask to stop the spread of a respiratory virus. The insanity of anyone suggesting 6-foot distancing. I mean, what an absolute joke. The idea of a lockdown that we've known for decades is the worst possible thing you can do for society, and it won't actually, stem the spread of the disease. But our colleagues not only bought into it, they promoted it. They became the virtue signalers. I have, my own friends removing every other chair in their waiting rooms, or putting, do not sit placards. And I'm saying, you've got to be kidding. I sat next to you in virology class. What is wrong with you? But so how do we get them to acknowledge the truth, which is they followed pseudoscience? They were led either, take your pick, there are multiple, they were led either by fear, their own fear, unfounded. They were led by money graft, because they feared that they would lose, or they were led by fear of losing their reputations, whatever else. Look, I wish I didn't go through what I went through. I certainly wish you had not gone through and continue to go through what you are going through at the hands of these petty tyrants who have made our lives miserable. Dr. Peter McCullough and others whose careers were really challenged and threatened. But the reality is, had our colleagues all joined in and said, no, this is not, we aren't doing social distancing. We aren't wearing masks. We aren't shutting down schools. Children are not at risk. None of this would have happened. And certainly the fast tracking, unfortunately, of a vaccine, if cooler heads had prevailed, other people would have stood up like you and I did and said, I'm sorry, there is no substitute for time when it comes to testing a new product. You could throw all the money you want at it, President Trump, and but there is no substitute for time. The only way you are going to get, 6-month, 12-month, 18-month, 24-month results on safety testing is to let those periods of time pass. There is no such thing as warp speeding a new vaccine.
Yeah, and we knew that. And I would just like to point out that despite the fact that they tried to destroy both of us, I'm thriving. Things are good. So there were some dark days, and it was probably the hardest period of my entire life. But those types of challenges help you grow. And I'm actually very grateful for that horrible experience, because it just made me stronger. And we just have to remember that when we're faced with something fearful or challenging, that the only way to deal with it is to face it head on. And I think both of us have shown that, we can thrive from that. So I'm super grateful to you. And I know that I want to say a thank you to the Wellness Company, which you are a part of, because they are sponsoring the show, which is a big compliment to me, because 3 years ago, I was persona non grata. I was dangerous to society. I was kicked off of social media. And now I have people who want to pay me to speak the truth, which is just a huge compliment. So I'm grateful to you and the Wellness Company for doing that.
Well, the Wellness Company really was formed out of the disaster of COVID and what we learned, the fact that the truth was being subverted, that people were being ridiculed and derided and canceled and censored and threatened for daring to speak the truth. It's part of the reason that the entire company came to be, because we never wanted people to be beholden to that system again. That's why we provide everything from the medical kits that have prescription drugs in them, because for the first time in my career, COVID was the first time in my entire career that I had, pharmacists refusing to fill legitimate prescriptions that I had written. And I know you had the same experience. The idea that, the CEO of Walgreens or Walmart or whoever it was could come up with a policy that, oh no, we're not going to fill prescriptions for whatever it is, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. That type of insanity birthed the Wellness Company. And if nothing else, we are wedded to not only truth, to medical freedom, and to highlighting voices like yours that are willing to speak it. You are spot on with regard to facing adversity. Obviously, anybody can do the right thing when the stakes are low, when there's nothing at risk. I have quoted more times than I care to think, John Milton has really guided me through this pandemic, which was, virtue untested is no virtue at all. Do you do the right thing when the stakes are high, when you've got everything to lose, like you and I did? And when people ask me, and I understand the frustration of your average American saying, who the heck do I listen to? I don't know where to go. I don't know who to believe. I don't want to even go to the doctor or the hospital. My suggestion is turn to the people who told you the truth the last time. Turn to the people who were willing to risk everything, who took it on the chin, and who actually had everything to lose but did the right thing anyway. I don't know about you, but I had nothing to gain by saying what I said from the beginning of the pandemic, by calling it out. I had everything to lose. And I was kicked off every social media platform. I was threatened. I had to go in front of the medical board over and over and over again to defend myself. And it's debilitating, but I did it because it was the right thing to do. And it did make me stronger. And it sort of emboldened me and my resolve to continue doing it. And shows like this one were born of it. And I think that that's fantastic. So I'm sorry you're still sort of in the trench with this, but you're doing the right thing. And I believe that deep down, they know you're doing the right thing.
Oh, well, yeah. If they don't, they will eventually, because the fight is just beginning with the medical board. I have a hearing on Friday. And then from there, I will be appealing. I will take it all the way to Supreme Court if I have to. I've already filed a lawsuit against them, and I will be filing another one against them soon. And I want to comment about ivermectin because Texas just made ivermectin over the counter. But of course, it's never that easy. There's a law that says that people can buy ivermectin in Texas without a prescription. Yet, we have called our favorite pharmacies, and I have this underground list of secret pharmacies that were willing to even fill my stupid prescriptions for ivermectin during the pandemic, and very grateful to them. But by and large, none of them are jumping on board to start dispensing ivermectin without a prescription. So you can get it from a wellness company, though. I'll say that, which is a great resource, and it is not coming from a foreign country, which is also nice. So I encourage everybody, until we can get this ironed out in Texas, perhaps go to the wellness company to get your ivermectin, because it's safe. It's a safe source, and you can all 50 states.
Yeah, there are 4 states so far that have passed it, so that it is technically, as you said, legal to buy over the counter. 9 more in the pipeline intend to do so, but it's meaningless if their pharmacies themselves won't comply with the new law. I'm not sure why they are so risk averse once the law has been passed. I think over time it will soften. But as you said, we make it available at the wellness company along with other prescription drugs that we believe people have a right to have on hand, so that they are not beholden to the system when they need something. I mean, why should there isn't a woman out there, as I said, who doesn't know when she's got a bladder infection. Why should you be stuck having to find, either call your doctor in the middle of the night, or find an urgent care, or God forbid, go to the emergency department, then get to a pharmacy to pick up a prescription for antibiotics? If you have the things ahead of time, you can use them when you need them. We're always available to consult on a telemedicine visit. If you're not certain, there's a very detailed guidebook. And those things, I think, again, that was really born of what we saw happen, the overreach of government, of politicians, of God knows the mainstream media, who all of a sudden were experts on everything, just because they read that President Trump was promoting the use of hydroxychloroquine. All of a sudden they're experts on it, and that overreach that really got in the way between people and their physicians was what we were trying to avoid.
Well, I agree. I mean, there are a whole host of medications that I believe should be over the counter. I don't know if you saw the post from Marty Makary a couple of days ago, hinting that they're going to make more drugs over the counter. But I think that's the direction we need to go. I mean, Americans should not have to go to the feed store to get their medications, or order it from India for medication that is safer than Tylenol. It's absolutely ridiculous. And ivermectin is just one example. When you come back, we should talk about that. All the medications out there that should be over the counter, because like you said, I mean, and Americans have so much more access to medical information now that, self-diagnosis is not as far-fetched as it once was, right? Because when we were in training, there was no internet, and the doctor was the authority on all information, unless the patient had textbooks at their disposal. But now people, I mean, they can self-diagnose with a lot more ease. And there's so many more drugs that I think they should have access to without having to go to a doctor.
I agree. And there, yeah, it would certainly soften the burden on the healthcare system as well. If you didn't have to take your child to the pediatrician every time the child has an ear infection, you know, or as I said, every time you've got a urinary tract infection or bronchitis that you get every winter and you need a Z-Pack or whatever it is, all it does right now is just churn the system.
Right.
It's a revenue generator for the doctor.
I'll say one thing about the Z-Pack. I feel like the Z-Pack should be over the counter. No one is allergic to Z-Pack. I mean, very few people are allergic to Z-Packs. And it's basically like, okay, if a Z-Pack doesn't work, then go to the doctor. But you know, everybody calls to get a Z-Pack anyway. And it has anti-inflammatory properties. So even if you're treating a virus, it can be beneficial. It wipes out pertussis, right? It wipes out strep throat. So yeah, I that's one thing I feel very strongly about is making that Z-Pack over the counter. I think it would save a lot of hassle for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Well, we have I've much enjoyed this, Kelly, as usual. We'll have you again soon. Thank you for all your insightful comments and coming on again.
Always happy to join you, Mary, and good luck at your next hearing. I know you will prevail, and you've got a lot of people fighting behind you who know that you're doing the right thing. You're going to be the poster child for this whole disaster of government and bureaucratic overreach in healthcare. So we're there with you.
Oh, thank you very much. And we'll just go to a break, Annie. And when we come back, we will have Brook Jackson and her attorney, Robert Barnes. I'm very deliberate about the partnerships I form and the voices I amplify. My platform was built on defending free speech, even when it comes at a cost. I've been canceled, banned, and flagged more times than I can count. And at one point, my bank froze every dollar I had instantly, with no warning, no explanation, and no way to fight back. I learned a big lesson. There's only one thing, though, that they can never cancel: physical gold and silver. No bank can freeze it. No processor can decline it. No faceless moderator can switch it off. For 5,000 years, gold and silver have worked when every system failed, through blackouts, bank runs, and every kind of chaos. That's why, after doing my research, I've decided to diversify my investments with gold. And I'm very proud to partner with Goldco, America's highest rated precious metals company. They've been in business for 19 years with over $3 billion in customer investments and A+ ratings with the Better Business Bureau. If you go to drmarygold.com, Goldco will give you a free gold and silver information kit and up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. This is the most generous incentive in the industry. Real wealth can't be canceled. Take back control at drmarygold.com.
And we are just about to get back to On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. She's going to be talking to Brook Jackson and her attorney, Robert Barnes. I cannot wait to hear that interview. And I'm just so thankful for warriors like Dr. Kelly Victory and Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, who are on the front lines, standing up for basic freedom, medical freedom, and so much common sense in that last interview. So thank you, ladies. I want to take a minute to talk about the wellness company. I know that Mary and Dr. Kelly Victory mentioned the wellness company in their interview. We're so thankful that they are sponsoring On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, along with Goldco, another amazing sponsor. We could not bring this show to you, and the show is getting so popular. The platforming is reaching so many people, and she's doing so much amazing work. We couldn't do it without Goldco, and we couldn't do it without the wellness company. So if you want to support Mary, I want to encourage you guys to go to twc.health/Mary. That is twc.health/Mary for all of your needs, whether it's an emergency kit, a contagion kit, ivermectin, or just a second opinion. They have everything that you need to take care of your health at twc.health/Mary. And every time you use the MARY promo code, you're going to get 10% off your entire order. Now, I also want to tell you guys about an amazing new product, Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream. Now, if you're like me, you might be experiencing or noticing redness and rosacea as you age. And you could cover it up with makeup if you're a girl. There's not much you can do if you're a guy, or you could just cure it. And the wellness company has an amazing product, the Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream. If you've tried everything for your cheek redness or rosacea and nothing worse, it might not be your fault. The real cause might be deeper than you think. So Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream from TWC is a prescription strength dermatologist developed formula that helps to reduce inflammation, balance bacteria, and restore your skin's natural glow. It's a triple action cream. It combines 3 medical grade ingredients for absolutely powerful results. Azelaic acid to unclog pores and fade dark spots, metronidazole to control bacterial imbalance and redness, and of course, the superstar ivermectin to calm irritation and eliminate skin parasites that contribute to rosacea and acne. So together, these ingredients work to reduce bumps, swelling, and redness while supporting smoother, healthier, and more radiant skin. And right now, you'll get $20 off if you use the promo code MARY at TWChealth/Mary. That's TWC.health/Mary. Promo code MARY to save $20 off plus free shipping as well. So without further ado, we're going to get back to the show. Dr. Mary Telly Bowden is now welcoming Brook Jackson and her attorney, Robert Barnes. I cannot wait to hear this interview. Thanks for being with us, and thank you to TWC.
And we're back with, I'm sandwiched by 2 of my favorite people, my favorite fighters. I've got Brook Jackson here and her attorney, and now my attorney, Robert Barnes. Welcome. Give us an update. I know there was a big hearing last week, so give us a rundown. Maybe, Robert, you want to start?
Yeah, no problem. So the oral argument was presented before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was sick, as was Warner Mendenhall, but Warner was able to slug through it. The good news is we got a panel of judges who come from a more blue-collar background, don't come from a long history of multiple generations of corporate or government work, come from, finished towards the top of their law school class. We're law review people. Not just on law review, but usually the editor. Didn't just go to Ivy League schools, went to other schools as well. And that combination of life experience, all have served on the Texas bench, either Texas Supreme Court or Texas trial court. So what you got was a much more practical level of experience in their lives and in their legal careers and in their governmental careers. And what that produced was a much better set of questions than you might get from a typical federal judicial panel. Historically, whoever gets more questions loses. It may seem weird, but it's the way the courts work. Excuse me. So I was looking forward to the fact that Warner got fewer questions than the government did and then Ventavia did. So that was the first good sign. The second sign is they understood the core of the issues, that the issues are whether the government should have been allowed to even intervene at such a late stage of the case after they declined to intervene early on. What the government really did is they dragged out the case, saying we're looking at it, we're investigating it, we're researching it, and they just lied to Brook all the way through, which Brook can speak to. Once we got involved, we figured out that was happening. Brook was able to talk. She had also been misled by even her prior lawyers. There's a common belief out there that when you file what's called a QTAM case, you're filing it on behalf of the U.S. government. The federal rules require that initially, but only for a very short period of time, be sealed from the public. The only reason for that is to allow the government time to investigate and so that they don't tip off the defendant, so the defendant doesn't flee or do something else. It is not intended to hide the whistleblower's information. And indeed, filing a QTAM case does not make it that you suddenly have to be private and secret about what's going on. But a lot of QTAM lawyers and government lawyers too will lie to a whistleblower and tell them you filed a QTAM case, you can't talk about the underlying facts anymore. You can't talk about the existence of the Ketam case, but you can always talk about the underlying facts. So British Medical Journal fully investigated it, fully researched it, fully vetted it, and they came to the conclusion that what Brook was alleging was absolutely true, which was that the COVID vaccine clinical trials were a complete joke. Nothing about them met any level of standard for saying something is safe, for saying something is effective, or for simply being able to figure out whether or not it's even a vaccine. So, because, I mean, you had people rolling in the hallways, you had people's private medical information tattooed on the walls, you had people, adverse events not being reported, you had not even blinding people, so that, which is critical to any degree of accuracy or efficacy measurements in a clinical test. So she went to her bosses. They said they would try to fix it. They didn't. So she went to those bosses. They said, okay, we'll shut it all down and we'll restart anew. And then she figured out they were not going to do that and went to the FDA. And the same day she went to the FDA, she gets fired later that same day. So she then goes to the government, gives it to the government, and Bill Barr hides it for the better part of 6 months. Then the Biden administration comes in and hides it for another year because they don't want the world to know that this is an unsafe, ineffective, therapeutic drug that doesn't act as a vaccine at all. And those were the terms that the government required. The contract with the Defense Department was that Pfizer would deliver a safe, effective vaccine for the prevention of COVID-19 at speed and scale. So those 6 requirements. All they delivered was speed and scale. What they delivered was dangerous, ineffective, not a vaccine, never prevented COVID-19. Indeed, you have a higher risk currently of getting COVID-19 if you've taken the COVID shot than if you've never taken the COVID shot. So once we got involved, we got the British Medical Journal to publish their report. And we got the government to unseal it finally. That got the attention of the world, and Brook going public saved a lot of lives. But what the government did is the government sat back and said, okay, we're not going to get involved. Okay, we're going to stick it with you guys. We go through, Pfizer initially gets a dismissal. We get it to a second chance to sue again. And it looks like we're going to prevail. And literally a week or two before the hearing, this is now 3.5 or so years into the process, all of a sudden the government shows up and says, please let us intervene solely to dismiss, but we're not going to tell you why. All we're going to tell you is that we think that the government's current public health policy says to not support Ketam cases, which makes no sense.
That was Biden's DOJ or Trump's DOJ? That
was Biden's DOJ.
Okay.
So we're now into Biden's DOJ, though I would note the lawyers assigned the case at the DOJ level never really change. Doesn't matter whether it's Trump 1, Biden 1, Trump 2. Same Pfizer-oriented lawyers end up getting assigned these Ketam cases, which is a serious flaw that they need to fix at the Justice Department. They need to reassign everybody that's in the Ketam division. There are people that aren't there to out fraud. They're there to cover it up. They then leave. They either start in private practice working for Big Pharma, then go to DOJ. And then after they leave DOJ, they're right back in Big Pharma. So you got this wrong kind of wheel going on. So we said, look, they didn't give any reason. You have to have good cause to intervene late in the case. They didn't give that good cause. They in order to seek a dismissal, you also have to have a justifiable cause. They didn't give a justifiable cause. They didn't say the evidence was weak. They didn't say the legal theory was wrong. In fact, they didn't disagree on either one of those. They simply said public policy. That's not grounds to do it. And then last but not least, they dismissed her retaliation claim on the grounds that we couldn't prove that they knew that she'd gone to the FDA. And our argument was we got a pretty strong inference, and that's what discovery is for. When she's fired, literally hours right after they find out she went to the FDA. So the Fifth Circuit asked very good questions, and questions that would suggest we have an above average chance at getting the case reinstated. And then maybe, finally, the Trump Justice Department will do the correct thing and join the case rather than keep seeking its dismissal.
Yeah, well, Judge Elrod was the same judge that ruled in our favor for the FDA case. So I'm a big fan of hers, and I noticed that too. She seemed to grill them a little harder than she grilled Warner. What about you, Brooke? What are your sentiments following that? Do you have more hope now?
Yeah, I would say so. just being able to be there in front of the government and my attorneys make the arguments they did, there is a satisfaction in that. I'm sure you understand that, Mary. I was a little disappointed I wasn't able to sit at the council table. I had to sit back in the jury, or not jury, but the I guess spectator section. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible to me that here we are almost 6 years later with, you know, a new Justice Department with Secretary Kennedy there, and they're still fighting this. It is a tough pill to swallow.
Do we know if Pam Bondi is aware of this case?
Oh, yes, she's fully aware. So pay for play Pam Bondi got her reputation in Florida for that's people may forget before there was an auto pen scandal, there was a robo pen scandal involving a major mortgage industry across the country during the great financial crisis that helped precipitate it. And in Florida, they were just auto signing a range of mortgage documents in order to repackage them and sell them up to Wall Street. That was illegal under Florida law. That meant all those people had a right to set aside their mortgages. So why did that never happen? It's because the Attorney General at the time of the state of Florida was Pam Bondi. And those big donors made, those big industries made big donations to her. And that's how she got the reputation as pay for play Pam. So I was a skeptic as soon as she was put in, but people said, don't worry, Yakov Roth is going to be on it. He's the number 2 at the appellate division. The number 1 at the appellate division was going to pay attention. Other people were going to pay attention. And instead, as soon as Pam Bondi got in, for those that don't know, Pam Bondi was the private lawyer for Pfizer during COVID. Okay, that's who Pam Bondi is. Hundreds of thousands of dollars she received. Not only did she not disqualify or recuse herself from presiding over the proceedings, she apparently gave the instruction to maintain the case in the same form it's been in. So this is one of many scandals. There's multiple antitrust cases she's interfered with. There's multiple civil rights cases in Harmy Dillon's division that she's interfered with. She's undermined Second Amendment defense in multiple cases. She frankly doesn't. She runs around like she's a sorority prosecutor or something, you know, with local news press conferences for cases that should be the local DA, not the Attorney General of the United States. So she's a systemic problem. And she has another opportunity to fix it. We'll see if she fixes it. She has an opportunity to fix it before the Fifth Circuit rules. She'll have another opportunity to fix it once the Fifth Circuit rules. And if she continues not to do so, then it will just show that the depth to which she is directly involved and implicated in continuing to be pay for play Pam and covering up the biggest health scandal in American political history.
I mean, she doesn't seem to be very popular. Why do you think Trump keeps her? What?
Loyalty. So Trump thinks the mistake he made in his first term was not that he picked people that were loyal to the swamp versus loyal to his base. He thinks his mistake was he picked people that weren't personally loyal to him. And Pam Bondi's long been personally loyal to him, going back to her days as Florida Attorney General. And so he confuses personal loyalty with efficacy and competency, even though the complaints he is hearing, because she's screwing up everything, not just the Pfizer case. Pam touches it, it turns to crap. So, you know, whether it's James Comey case, other cases, etc. So she's just not capable, nor is her deputy, Todd Blanche, capable. Now, Harmy Dillon would be capable. Harmy Dillon took on some good cases during COVID. Gail Slater at the Antitrust Division, she's very capable. To see them as 1 and 2 at the Attorney at Justice Department would probably be a major improvement. I know there are people asking me to try to get Bobby Kennedy to go over and be Attorney General. He's a little busy at the moment with enough issues. But there has to be an improvement in the Justice Department, because it's not just these Maha cases. It's the fluoride cases. It's the case against you in terms of how the state of Texas harassed doctors and other medical professionals and legal professional groups across the country. Trump has even asked them to open up an investigation into the California State Bar trying to persecute John Eastman. To my knowledge, they haven't done so yet. I know Harmy Dillon's trying to, but to my knowledge, Bondi doesn't want much controversy. She just wants to be seen as popular, successful, and line her pockets. And that means she'll stay away from really tough cases. And that's cases like this that expose, you know, the Trump voter does not want to see Anthony Bourla at another dinner at the White House, unless it's a dinner in honor of his public execution.
Amen.
I love that. What, how long
He's
do you
wild.
think?
You should have just had Robert on and I could have finished cleaning my house, Mary.
I
He does so
know.
good.
Well, when can we expect a decision, do you think?
So I think within 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Within 3 to 4. Sometimes these go quicker, sometimes they go longer. But if it's a favorable ruling, then it's going to be 3 to 4 months.
And if it's unfavorable, is it over?
No, we go up to the Supreme Court of the United States. So this won't end until this. They may all the government. I mean, I can't imagine the government would appeal to SCOTUS, but they might. There's some idiots over there. But I could see Ventavia appealing to the Supreme Court because they'll do anything other than face discovery in this case. The one thing people should know above all else, they've been paranoid of discovery in this case. They've gone to ridiculous lengths to avoid discovery. That means there's smoking gun discovery we haven't even seen, other than what's come out of the FOIA case. There must be internal communications where they're basically admitting that they knew the product was bogus and they were going to rush it anyway.
Well, I mean, haven't they had ample time to destroy all that?
You would think so, but these kind of big corporations have a habit of not effectively doing that. The other problem is they've got too many subcontractors. A lot of these subcontractors is a way to evade individual liability. But a downside of that is you don't know who's got records where. And remember, they did these tests globally. And there's reason to believe that they contaminated the ones in Argentina, that they contaminated ones in Brazil, that they contaminated ones in Europe. I mean, the head of Europe, the European Union, von der Leyen, is still losing her text messages and her emails from Pfizer. My guess is those were not, hey, everything's going great. So I suspect something somewhere is buried someplace that they can't fully dispatch.
Brooke, remind us what you saw when you were on site overseeing these research trials. Tell us exactly what fraud you saw taking place.
Well, it was, a quick 18 days. But while I was there, I want to say that the most important thing for me when I was auditing the patients in the clinical trial was the lack of informed consent. So for me, that is the number one thing that we have to do in a clinical trial, that you have to do before you get a surgery. The informed consent is everything. It talks to the patient about what they're getting involved in, what their responsibilities are as a patient, making appointments, making sure that they're communicating any adverse events. So it's a time when that informed consent process is happening for you to explain, the potential risks, the potential benefits, what their responsibilities are, what our responsibilities were. And when I walked in and started, really digging into these charts, they weren't even providing the patients with informed consent. And it's not just a moment where you sign a document, right? It is a process, and it begins when they enter the trial and it ends when they're finished at their study completion visit. So it's something that we're constantly talking to patients about. But when you're forging patient signature and not completing the process, that it was a problem for me, and something that I documented every single day. So that was number one.
They were forging signatures?
Yes. Yeah. So when I would flag an informed consent, and so I had Post-it little sticky notes everywhere, and that's what we do as auditors, right? We flag things. So I would say every day I would flag 3 to 5 informed consent issues where there wasn't a signature. And it wasn't just the patient's signature, but it was a signature of the investigator, the clinician that's overseeing the trial would have to attest to answering any questions that the patient had. Again, it is a process. I would say, with this study, although it wasn't a complicated study, for me to go into a patient's room and have a conversation about the clinical trial, and of course my spill would get easier and better every time I do it, but at least an hour going over the informed consent, which was 28 pages if I'm remembering correctly. So it just takes time. But yeah, they were so interested in getting patients in and out of the door that they were not consenting them. Sometimes they would inject them with either the placebo or the vaccine, and then they would give them informed consent. So it was just, it was a small clinic. We had, 5 rooms. So it was just like in and out, in and out. But I would flag these informed consents where signatures were missing. And then like a day or two, I would come back and the signature would be there. And I knew that the patient had not come in. I would have known, I would have seen the patient. I was in clinic, 12, 14, 16 hours a day sometimes. And I know this patient did not come in. So somebody had seen that I'd flagged a missing signature and came back and forged the patient's signature. And what I could do was compare the signature. And again, because, I'm an auditor, and not that I'm looking for things that you're doing wrong, but, it's a teaching moment. It's an opportunity for me to make sure you don't do that again and the patient knows. But I could compare the signature from their driver's license to the one on the informed consent. Mm-hmm. And I could tell that they were mismatched. But that was the number one thing. But Dr. Bennett, I saw so many things, not reporting adverse events, including some of those that were serious. Not testing women who were of childbearing potential for whether or not they were pregnant, not testing patients. And of course, this was up to the investigator, but, not testing patients who were calling in, reporting that they had, gotten sick post their injection. Mm-hmm. Sloppy, certainly a lot of sloppy research. And maybe we could have got through some of that. But the majority of the things that I was finding were things that should have excluded the patient data set from ever being considered in the overall determination of whether that stuff was safe or effective.
How many patients were tested at that clinic or went through the trial at that clinic?
So we had approximately 1,500 patients between 3 clinical trial sites. But when you look at the final determination of the efficacy, the 95%, we know there's things wrong with that. But there were 170 efficacy endpoints. So how many of those 170 came from my clinical trial site? They won't tell us. I know, but they've never disclosed it.
And I think you said, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mary.
Well, I was going to say, I think you said the clinicians were unblinded, or how did that happen? Well, how did that work?
So during the clinical trial, when we were screening a patient, so a patient would sign informed consent and we would review their medical history, what concomitant medications they were taking, and they're assigned what we call a screening number. So we have to go into the computer, assign this number, and then proceed with the study visit to determine their eligibility, review all the inclusion criteria, make sure women aren't pregnant, make sure men, promise to do what they have to do to keep their significant other from getting pregnant. So there were just all these things that we had to do. That's part of the clinical trial. You can think of the protocol as a guide, a map. We do step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's something that Pfizer provided us. So any deviation from that is something that we would either have to note or report to the institutional review board that's overseeing the conduct and safety and wellness of the patients that were participating. Sorry, I lost track. What were you saying?
The clinicians were unblinded, so they knew who got the shots and who didn't when they were, reporting their outcomes. Is that right?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mary. So after you determine a patient's eligible, then you go back into this online system and you give them a randomization assignment, and that's done randomly through the computer, and that assigns them to placebo or that assigns them to the actual investigational product. And what we were doing was printing out that drug assignment and actually putting it in their medical chart. And every research center will do research differently. Some clinics will use all paper charts. Others will use, EMR or electronic recording of this stuff. But we use paper charts. So everything, that we would document from blood pressure to, physical exam is done on paper. And in the chart, we were placing the randomization assignment. So anytime the doctor would look at the chart, he could flip right to the section and see, oh, well, this patient got the actual drug or the placebo. And then, you know, it's hard for him. It introduces a bias that, you know, it interrupts and the entire data set. You can't rely on the data because, again, he's biased now. He knows that the patient got this or the patient got that. So it's
one thing you talked about, which I haven't heard before, is the IRB. Were people, did they respond to you? Did you talk to the IRB? And the IRB is sort of the oversight institution for all research. Like if you're doing a project, you have to get it approved by the IRB. So they're like the police of the research project. What any
they are
steps
they
with
are
them?
And they have obligations to the FDA as well. You know, if we as a site have a patient who experiences adverse events, you know, that they have an obligation to report to the FDA as well. Any like consenting issues, that was a huge issue, like I mentioned before. We had to report those to the IRB. And unfortunately, Mary, I didn't make it far enough. You know, 18 days was not a long time. I spent the majority of that time dealing with HR type issues and trying to make sure that these patients were safe and that their events were reported correctly. So as far as what happened with the site, if there was ever an inspection, I know there was never an FDA audit, which there certainly should have been. There could still be one. I think there should be one of the IRB. For Ventavi and other sites. You know, I know that there was fraud elsewhere. You know, I've had investigators from other sites contact me and tell me directly that they were receiving, you know, directives from Pfizer to record or not record certain events a certain way. So I just wish I hate it because it's I still love research, but it's made me think back on how many other clinical trials that I helped with, and I worry that I helped bring to market things that are hurting people like this is.
You know, I became disillusioned with research during residency because I saw how sloppy it tends to be. And, you know, for when you're in training, you're basically just helping your attendings crank out as many studies as they can. So that helps their career. What I saw was these were not very well done studies. We were just trying to publish. And it really disillusioned me on research for me. And this what happened. It happened during COVID, right? Is I learned to rely on my clinical experience and what I was seeing firsthand, rather than what's published in a journal where there's all sorts of ulterior motives and financial issues that most people are not aware of. So
yeah, talk about disillusioned. You know, I mean, there's you know, I come from a military family, so it's like chain of command, right? So I'm thinking at the level that I'm doing clinical research, that when it goes to Pfizer, that Pfizer's, I know this sounds, I hate it when I say this, but Pfizer's reporting as they should, right, to FDA, and then the FDA is doing their job. And so I just made that assumption that everybody had integrity like I did. And when you see something wrong, just say it, you know. So what if we don't include 1,500 patients in your data analysis? Exclude them. Right. They're corrupt, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard, Mary, because I've seen amazing things that I helped in phase 1, those early stages, phase 2 even, that are still to this day used as standard of care. So I was a research participant myself. I'm a mother because of clinical research. I had to do IVF in a clinical trial. So research gave me my kids. So I you know, I love it. I still have hope for it. But it's been a wild ride, that's for sure.
Well, it can't all be bad, but you know, you basically back up that research with clinical experience. And usually when the clinical experience doesn't match the research, the FDA steps in and pulls the product. We've definitely seen that with other things, Vioxx, there've been antibiotics, or, you know, it's, there's a checks and balance system, but not for these shots, obviously. So unfortunately, we had to tie things up, but we'll have you back hopefully when we have some good news. I am optimistic. I feel like Judge Elrod and I see things the same way. So she gives me hope.
Well, yeah, because we're prisoners of that. You know, I'm a prisoner of hope. I'm always hopeful. I'm hopeful that, you know, through this case, we can get justice for the people that have been harmed. You know, you know, I've said from the very beginning, and Robert kind of helped me understand this, you know, that this case will be won in the eyes of the public. And so I feel like I've already won that. I'm really mad that I got fired. I've never been fired before. So that retaliation piece is my thing. You know, that's what I'm asking for. But for the lawsuit, the false claim, that this key tam action, it's for the American people who you know, trusted in this, and especially for the people that have been hurt. I mean, I think about them every day, and the only reason I'm still here is because of them. I want to walk away, but I can't.
I have to throw in one more thing. I mean, yesterday in clinic, I saw a patient who got his 4th COVID shot and he didn't want it. His primary care doctor pressured him into getting it. He's in his 50s. He has some mild health problems, but nothing major. He got coerced into getting it. And now he is like, just his whole body stiffened up, neck, shoulders, hips, so that he could not even move. And he was just in agonizing pain, and now is on high dose steroids. And of course, the primary care doctor will not even acknowledge that the shot could have had anything to do with it. So it's still out there, even though, you know, the pandemic is long gone and people think no one's getting these shots. They unfortunately are still getting these shots. So thank you for taking this battle on. I know it's been grueling. You've been at it now for 5 years, which is hard to believe. But thank you. And thank you, Robert, for representing her and being so outspoken and not shy to talk about it. And we will hopefully have y'all on soon to celebrate.
I appreciate it, Mary. Thank you so much. And we'll see you Friday.
Oh, yeah. At the board. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. And we will be back next week and have a look at our sponsors, because without them, this would not be possible. And I am very grateful that they are willing to put their name next to mine. We'll see you next week.